Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive.
This time we're going to be looking at the end of Rome's Golden Age.
Okay.
And we're talking about a period from roughly 180 to 235 AD.
Right.
When this mighty empire starts to crack under pressure.
Mm.
I am so excited to dig into the sources that you've given me.
Yeah.
That podcast script, Why Rome's Golden Age Ended, the turmoil between 180 235 AD, is a great find.
It is a good one.
It really is.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Rome didn't just implode overnight. It was this slow unraveling, a mix of things going wrong, both inside the empire and on its borders.
It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck.
Totally.
But in togas.
Yeah.
So to really understand this, I think we need to picture Rome at its peak first.
Okay.
Think Pax Romana.
Right.
From 27 BC to 180 AD.
Mm-hmm.
What was life like then?
Oh, man, just imagine a world where one empire controlled land from Britain to North Africa, even parts of the Middle East.
Wow.
That was Rome during Pax Romana. Their legal system was advanced. They had roads and aqueducts that still stand today.
Incredible.
And the economy was booming thanks to trade and agriculture.
Yeah.
Citizens back then,
Yeah.
they weren't doing too badly.
That's quite the picture.
Yeah.
But you're right, this deep dive isn't about celebrating good times.
Right.
It's about figuring out how they went sour.
Exactly.
And it seems like Emperor Marcus Aurelius kicking the bucket in 180 AD was a turning point.
Absolutely.
What would you say?
100%.
Yeah.
Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, was like the ideal Pax Romana ruler.
Wow.
Wise, just the whole package.
Yep.
But his death was like switching out a steady hand on the wheel for, well, something much less predictable. His son Commodus took over, and he was a totally different beast.
This is where the story gets juicy.
Oh, yeah.
Our sources describe Commodus as, how do we put this delicately?
A bit of a character.
Understatement of the century.
Really?
Commodus was obsessed with gladiatorial combat.
Oh, wow.
Even jumping into the arena himself.
What?
Can you imagine the scandal?
Yeah.
The emperor risking his neck for sport?
Yeah.
He even declared himself a god.
Oh, my gosh.
And renamed Rome after himself, Colonia Commodiana.
Wow.
Talk about an ego trip.
Yeah.
This completely undermined the emperor's authority.
Right.
Something that had been carefully built up for generations.
So from wise philosopher king to a self-proclaimed god who loved a good sword fight, it seems almost too outlandish to be true.
Yeah.
What impact did this dramatic shift have on the empire's stability?
Well, Commodus's reign was just a whirlwind of paranoia and instability.
Really?
He alienated the Senate, executed anyone he saw as a threat, justified or not,
Wow.
and generally ran the empire like his personal playground.
Yeah.
This created the perfect breeding ground for discontent.
Yeah.
And no surprises here. It led to his assassination in 192 AD.
Assassination.
I guess that's one way to give an emperor a performance review.
Right.
So his untimely demise kicked off an even crazier chapter.
So, yacht.
The infamous Year of the Five Emperors in 193 AD.
Buckle up.
5 emperors in 1 year.
Talk about a revolving door of power.
It's wild.
What was going on behind the scenes that led to such instability?
Think of it like this.
Okay.
Each of these guys who wanted the throne
Right.
had the backing of different factions of the Roman military.
Yeah.
So you had Pertinax trying to restore order.
Okay.
Julianus flashing his cash to buy support.
Wow.
And then Niger, Albinus, and Severus all throwing their legions into the mix.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't just about who sat on the throne.
Right.
It was about who controlled the army.
Yeah.
A recipe for disaster, right?
Sounds more like a recipe for civil war.
Pretty much.
So who eventually emerged from this power struggle?
Septimius Severus.
Okay.
A general who was as cunning as he was ruthless, was the last man standing.
Wow.
He established the Severan dynasty, which did manage to bring back some stability.
Okay.
But
there's always a but.
always a but.
In Roman history.
It came at a steep price.
Sounds intriguing.
Okay, let's break down Septimius Severus.
Okay.
What kind of leader was he?
And how did his role shape the empire, even with the cost you mentioned?
Severus was brilliant militarily
Okay.
and a master politician.
Mm.
He knew the army was the key to power.
Right.
And made sure to keep his soldiers happy.
Okay.
Increased spending, expanded legions, special privileges, you name it.
Wow.
This, however, meant other parts of Roman society,
Okay.
like the Senate,
Right.
lost a lot of their influence.
So he basically shifted the power dynamic towards the military.
Exactly.
Was that a sustainable strategy, though?
Didn't it make the empire even more dependent on its legions?
And the costs that came with them.
That's the million denarius question, isn't it?
Yeah.
His policies, while effective for short-term power, had some serious long-term side effects.
Let's dig into those side effects.
Let's do it.
How did this increased military spending affect the Roman economy?
And by extension, everyday Roman life.
Well, to fund his army, Severus had to raise taxes.
Never popular.
Never popular.
Yeah.
And devalue Roman currency.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
Yeah.
Imagine your money suddenly buying half of what it used to.
Ouch.
This is inflation in action.
Yeah.
And it hit the Roman economy hard,
Right.
eroding its foundations.
So not only was the political landscape shifting.
But the average Roman was feeling the pinch in their wallet, too.
Exactly.
And if I'm not mistaken, things weren't exactly peaceful on Rome's borders during this time, were they?
Catching on quickly?
While Rome was dealing with internal drama, external threats were brewing like a bad storm.
Uh-oh.
The Germanic tribes up north sensed weakness.
Yeah.
And started pushing harder against the Rhine and Danube frontiers.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the east, the Parthian Empire was flexing its muscles.
Oh.
Ready to challenge Roman dominance.
Talk about a double whammy.
It was not a good time to be Roman.
So you have political instability, economic woes, and enemies at the gates?
It's amazing Rome didn't just fall apart right then and there.
It's a testament to the empire's resilience.
Yeah.
At least for a while longer.
Okay.
But Septimius Severus's reign, despite restoring some order, had definitely set the stage for a bumpy ride ahead.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground already.
But I think it's time to delve into the Severan dynasty's final years.
Okay.
And see how those external threats and internal pressures finally brought down the curtain on Rome's golden age.
Let's do it.
Ready to keep diving?
Absolutely. We left off with Septimius Severus, who managed to get a grip on the Roman Empire.
Right.
But his reign, while bringing some stability, also laid the groundwork for the chaos that was to come.
Okay, so when Severus died in 211 AD, who picked up the pieces?
Did his heirs manage to keep things from completely falling apart?
Severus had high hopes for a joint rule between his two sons.
Okay.
Caracalla and Geta. But their rivalry was so intense that Caracalla had Geta assassinated within a year.
Oh, wow.
Talk about sibling rivalry taken to a whole new level.
Yikes. That's one way to eliminate the competition.
So was Caracalla a chip off the old block?
Or did he carve his own path?
He definitely inherited his father's military prowess.
Okay.
And continued to favor the army. But he was also known for his ruthlessness, perhaps even more so than Severus.
Really?
And crucially, he lacked his father's political finesse.
Okay.
Leading to some decisions that would have a ripple effect throughout the empire.
Decisions that had a ripple effect.
You've definitely piqued my curiosity.
Can you give us an example?
What kind of choices are we talking about?
One of the most significant was the Edict of Caracalla in 212 AD.
Okay.
This edict granted Roman citizenship to all free men within the empire.
Right.
It might sound inclusive on the surface, but it actually created more problems than it solved.
More citizens, more unity, right?
What could go wrong?
Well, in theory, yes.
Yeah.
Caracalla probably hoped to increase tax revenue and manpower for the army.
Right.
However, by extending citizenship to everyone, it diminished its value and the prestige that came with it.
Yeah.
Imagine working your whole life to earn something.
Yeah.
Only to have it given away to everyone.
I see your point.
So instead of unifying the empire...
This edict might have fueled resentment and division.
Exactly.
And of course, a bigger empire means more people to manage.
Right.
And more resources to stretch.
It's like trying to feed a growing family with the same loaf of bread.
Right.
You're going to run into problems.
Yeah.
And speaking of problems, Caracalla's reign didn't exactly have a peaceful ending.
Let me guess another assassination.
It seems like that was the preferred method of regime change in ancient Rome.
You got it.
In 217 AD, Caracalla met his end while on a campaign in the east.
Okay.
His assassination plunged the empire back into a power struggle.
Right.
A familiar tune by now.
Yeah, those Roman emperors could never catch a break, could they?
So who stepped into the power vacuum after Caracalla?
Did the Severan dynasty continue?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
After a brief power struggle, Macrinus, a Praetorian prefect, seized control.
Okay.
But the army saw him as an outsider.
Right.
And his rule was short-lived and unpopular.
Yeah.
He was overthrown and executed within a year.
Wow.
Power then shifted to Elagabalus,
Okay.
a young priest who was a distant relative of Septimius Severus through his wife's family.
A priest emperor, that's definitely not something you hear every day.
How did that work out for him?
Not well at all.
Really?
Elagabalus was more interested in religious reforms than in governing.
Oh.
He tried to introduce the worship of a Syrian sun god,
Okay.
alienating the traditional Roman elite.
Right.
His reign was a whirlwind of extravagant scandal and political instability.
So another emperor bites the dust.
Rome continues its downward spiral.
Did this finally mark the end of the Severan dynasty?
After Elagabalus was assassinated in 222 AD, the throne went to his cousin Severus Alexander. And get this, he was only 14 years old at the time.
A teenage emperor? Talk about being thrown into the deep end.
How did someone so young handle the immense pressures of ruling an empire in turmoil?
Severus Alexander, while well-intentioned and influenced by his mother and advisors, was dealt a terrible hand.
Yeah.
The empire was financially depleted, the army was restless, and the external threats were becoming more and more aggressive.
It sounds like he was set up to fail. What were the biggest threats Rome faced at this point?
The Germanic tribes along the Rhine and Danube rivers were getting bolder, launching frequent raids into Roman territory. And over in the east, the Sasanian Empire, which had replaced the Parthians, was rapidly expanding. They were a formidable force and eager to challenge Rome's dominance.
So Rome was basically caught between a rock and a hard place.
Facing enemies on multiple fronts. How did Severus Alexander deal with these mounting crises?
Was he able to hold the empire together?
He tried his best, but it was like trying to patch up a sinking ship.
Oh.
He attempted diplomacy, but it wasn't enough.
Right.
He was forced to launch costly military campaigns against both the Germanic tribes and the Sasanian Empire. But neither was successful.
Military defeats are never good for an emperor's popularity.
Especially a young one trying to prove himself. What impact did these losses have on Severus Alexander's reign and the empire as a whole?
It was a devastating blow.
Yeah.
These setbacks further drained Rome's resources and, more importantly, damaged its image of invincibility.
Wow.
Imagine the shockwave that went through the empire when the legions once considered unbeatable were defeated.
Right.
It emboldened Rome's enemies, who saw it as a sign of weakness.
Right.
Ripe for exploitation.
I can only imagine the whispers spreading through the empire.
Rome is losing its grip. Not a good look for a young emperor trying to establish his authority.
What happened next?
Did Severus Alexander manage to recover from these setbacks?
Sadly, no.
Oh.
His failure to secure victories, coupled with the ongoing economic turmoil, eroded his support within the army. In 235 AD, while on campaign in Germania, Severus Alexander and his mother were assassinated by their own troops.
Another assassination. It seems like violence was the go-to solution for any problem in Roman politics.
Did Severus Alexander's death finally bring the Severan dynasty to an end?
Yes, it did.
And with it, a new chapter of Roman history began. A period known as the Crisis of the 3rd Century. This era, lasting roughly 50 years, was a chaotic whirlwind of civil wars, political instability, economic collapse, and barbarian invasions.
Oh my God.
Imagine the worst of times and then multiply it by 10.
Okay, so we've gone from the Pax Romana, a time of peace and prosperity,
to this crisis of the 3rd century where everything seems to be falling apart.
Yep.
It's almost unbelievable how quickly things changed.
What were the main factors that contributed to this dramatic decline?
Was it just bad luck?
Or were there deeper systemic issues at play?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of what we're trying to understand. While it's tempting to blame individuals like Commodus or Caracalla for Rome's downfall, the reality is much more complex. Remember those cracks in the foundation we talked about earlier?
Yes.
Well, they were starting to widen during the late Pax Romana. The growing influence of the army. The financial burdens of a vast empire. The increasing pressure on its frontiers. All of these factors were slowly chipping away at Rome's strength.
So it wasn't one single event that caused Rome to crumble,
but rather a series of interconnected problems that over time became too much to bear. It's like a domino effect.
Totally.
One problem leading to another until the whole structure collapses.
Precisely.
And it highlights an important lesson. Even the mightiest empires are not invincible. They are vulnerable to both internal and external pressures. And understanding those pressures is key to understanding why they ultimately fall.
It's amazing to think that an empire as powerful as Rome could be brought to its knees.
But we've covered a lot of ground, and seen how Rome's golden age crumbled under the weight of bad decisions.
Yeah.
Internal power struggle.
And external threats. What happened next?
Did Rome manage to pull itself back from the brink? Welcome back to our deep dive into the fall of Rome's golden age.
Before we dove into the Severan dynasty, we talked about the crisis of the 3rd century.
Right.
That era of absolute chaos that almost brought the Roman Empire to its knees.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine how they recovered from that.
It's a testament to the empire's adaptability and resilience,
Yeah,
would you say?
absolutely. So how did they do it?
What was the secret sauce that allowed Rome to pull itself back from the abyss?
There wasn't one single solution, but rather a combination of strong leadership and military reforms and a complete overhaul of the administrative structure.
Wow.
A series of emperors, starting with Aurelian in 270 AD, rose to the challenge.
Okay.
They restored order, repelled external threats, and implemented crucial reforms that breathed new life into the empire.
It's fascinating how some individuals can rise to the occasion during times of crisis.
It really is.
Can you give us some specific examples of those reforms?
What did these emperors do to right the ship and set Rome back on course?
One of the most important changes was the reorganization of the military.
Okay.
Emperors like Diocletian and Constantine realized that the old system, with legions stationed along fixed borders, was outdated.
Right.
They needed a more flexible and responsive army, capable of quickly mobilizing and deploying to wherever the threat was.
Makes sense.
Not just waiting for enemies to show up at the border.
Right. A more agile military force.
Exactly.
That makes sense. What about the administrative side of things?
Did they make any changes to how the empire was governed after all? Rome wasn't just a small town anymore.
It was a vast empire spanning multiple continents.
Absolutely. Diocletian in particular was a master of restructuring.
Okay.
He divided the empire into 4 administrative units.
Oh, wow.
Each ruled by a co-emperor.
Okay.
This system, known as the Tetrarchy,
Right.
was designed to streamline governance and ensure that the vast Roman territories could be managed and defended more effectively.
So it was like a Roman version of divide and conquer.
But in this case, it was divide and rule more effectively. Pretty clever.
Very clever.
Did it work? Did these reforms actually stabilize the empire?
They did for a while, at least.
Okay.
These reforms, combined with strong leadership, helped pull the Roman Empire back from the brink of collapse.
Wow.
They restored order, strengthened the borders, and ushered in a period of renewed stability known as the Dominate.
The Dominate, that's a new term for me.
So they managed to buy themselves some time.
Right.
But did this new stability come at a cost?
Did the Roman Empire that emerged from this crisis resemble the empire of the Pax Romana?
That's an excellent point. The Roman Empire that emerged from the crisis of the 3rd century was a very different beast.
Really?
It was more centralized, more authoritarian, with a much larger and more expensive military.
Oh.
The economy, although stabilized, never fully regained its former glory.
Right.
And decades of turmoil left deep scars on Roman society and culture, changing the fabric of everyday life.
It seems like they traded one set of problems for another.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, did this period change how Romans viewed themselves and their place in the world?
Did they still believe in the idea of eternal Rome?
The crisis of the 3rd century shattered the myth of Rome's invincibility.
Yeah.
It was a wake-up call, a stark reminder that even the greatest empires are not immune to decline.
This has been an incredible journey through Roman history.
It really has.
We've seen how a golden age can crumble.
Yeah.
How internal and external pressures can bring even the mightiest empires to their knees, and how resilience and adaptation can lead to unexpected renewal.
Right.
What are the key takeaways from our deep dive?
The Roman Empire story is a cautionary tale about the fragility of power.
Okay.
It reminds us that strong leadership, adaptable institutions, and a healthy economy are vital for any society's long-term stability.
So what you're saying is that decline isn't inevitable.
But it's something that all societies, even the most powerful, need to be aware of and actively work to prevent.
Right.
It's about being proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. And it also highlights the importance of learning from history.
Right.
Of studying the past to understand the present and prepare for the future.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listener, thank you for taking this journey with us.
We hope this exploration of the Roman Empire's rise and fall has given you plenty to think about.
Could Rome have avoided its fate? Are there parallels between the challenges Rome faced and the challenges our world faces today?
We encourage you to keep exploring these questions.
And most importantly, never stop learning.